Hey, world history students. We are continuing Unit 3, and we're moving past absolutism now. Now we're going to talk more about another big part of that time period, which was the scientific revolution. And this truly was revolutionary in that it brings about a lot of discoveries and a lot of things that we're going to talk about, and we're going to see improve everybody's lives from here on out. And we're going to learn a lot more about the universe. So let's take a look at what Section 3 is all about. Well, number one, before we get started, we need to understand where we're coming from in order to understand why this was a revolution. Well, previously in medieval times, the Dark Ages, and prior to the Renaissance, most of the viewpoints of science comes from Greek and Roman texts. All right, they did a lot of the work there with Greek and Roman scholars producing many of the theories. And one of their main theories that people believed was the geocentric theory. You can kind of see here, it basically shows that the Earth is the center of the universe and the sun, moon, and other planets move around the Earth. They get this mostly from, many different sources, and is really perpetuated by many verses in the Bible that the Catholic Church, kind of professes as being, the reason why the Earth is the center of the universe. Basically, they point to the Bible and it says, the earth cannot move. And other parts of the Bible say that we are the center in different parts. But it's not really clear what the Bible is actually saying in terms of astronomy. Nevertheless, though, the church believes the earth to be the center of the universe. And the Renaissance is starting to cause people to question those established norms of the church. And this comes into fruition a little bit later after the Renaissance is over, where we start seeing people look more at the world and how we understand it. And they do this based on the scientific revolution. They use things like the scientific method and new tools in order to learn more about the earth. So we're going to see a breakthrough in science, technology, astronomy, mathematics, and a lot of other areas like that. So one of the big accomplishments during that time period was Nicholas Copernicus' idea of the heliocentric theory, which is the one that we subscribe to today, and we know to be true. But this was revolutionary at the time. The heliocentric theory, as Copernicus stated, is that the sun, not the earth, but the sun is the center of the universe, and all the planets, including Earth, revolve around it. Again, this is very revolutionary. Nobody, for the most part, has any proof or any observations that would back this up. And Copernicus, although he did make observations, could not mathematically and scientifically prove his theory. And he also knew that the Catholic Church would not like it. So he actually withheld his theory of the heliocentric theory until right before his death in 1543. And then he published his book. Basically, he did this because he knew that the Catholic Church was most likely going to excommunicate him or possibly worse. And so he held on to that until right before he died. Later on, scientists are going to prove Copernicus is right, but they did not know that at the time. It's really going to be made more public by a guy named Galileo. Galileo is going to use a new form of telescope, the improved telescope, in order to make a lot of different observations. He's going to learn a lot more about the universe, and especially in our solar system, based off his new telescope. And he's going to basically further Copernicus' theory on the heliocentric theory and do a lot more to prove his theory to be correct. The problem with Galileo is that he's going to do this way before he is near death, and that is going to cause a conflict with the Catholic Church. And it's because the Catholic Church is preaching to everybody that the earth, not the sun, is the center of the universe. And they're worried that they're going to that Galileo is going to weaken people's faith by proving them to be wrong on this matter. So even though they know Galileo has some good points, they're not willing to accept that. And they're not willing to accept anything other than the Bible's interpretation. And so the Pope forces Galileo to declare himself to be a heretic, that he's wrong. He has to take back his statements, and they put Galileo under house arrest for the rest of his life. The Catholic Church does, that is, and they burn all of his books and said, anybody that is in possession of this is a heretic and will be excommunicated. They were very afraid of that academic change, those scientific discoveries, and that's going to cause some problems. Now, that's not to say that his work didn't get out, because people did read his books. However, if they found it, they were going to burn any copy that they had. However, we know that Galileo's ideas would spread around the academic community. People would believe him, and it took a long time, though, for his ideas to catch on because of the Catholic Church's stance on it. This is a painting here of Galileo going before the church. Here's some great memes for you. You can pause and enjoy. All right, next we're going to take a look at Francis Bacon and René Descartes. They are best known for creating the scientific method, different parts of it. Bacon was really in charge of using experimentation, not just using logic, but using experimentation to prove one thing causes another. Just like we know Descartes advocated for using that logic, using mathematics, put all that together with Bacon, Descartes, you're going to get the modern day scientific method. So these guys are influential in that scientific method you probably use in one of your other classes for science. We know that you use hypotheses and you test those hypotheses and you use analysis and you form conclusions based off those experiments and using the logic and mathematics that they talked about. And so this really made a great new discovery and allowed a lot of people to make a lot of discoveries as a result. So that was Francis Bacon and René Descartes improving the scientific method. The last guy we're going to talk about is a guy named Isaac Newton. Absolute genius. He invented calculus, I believe, at the age of 23 or 24. That class, the very uppermost class that you're going to take in high school. Well, he invented that in his early 20s. So that tells you how much of a genius he was. And he also came up with the laws of motion, those 3 laws of motion that we kind of go by. Not only did he come up with those laws of motion, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction, he also came up with the law of gravity, explaining why things travel towards the earth. If you drop something, why is it going to fall? And people have just come up with all kinds of explanations, but he mathematically proved all of these different theories. He was instrumental in proving the heliocentric theory as well, using his newfound work in calculus. He also was able to publish a lot of these works that are still founded as principles today. So he was extremely influential. Also, what we're going to notice during this time period is a lot of new instruments to make discoveries are going to come around. Things like the microscope. We're going to see the discovery of cells come soon. Thermometer, we're going to use those for experiments. The compasses we already know about is going to help in navigation. And the telescope of Galileo and others that are going to lead to more discoveries in astronomy. So we're learning tons more about the universe thanks to these new scientific instruments. All right. Some more great memes here. Here's some of the discoveries, the instruments during that time. All right, finally, let's look at the cause and effect. What caused the scientific revolution? What was its effect? Well, one, we talk about the Renaissance and humanism really causing people to question the established norms. That's going to lead to people like Descartes and Bacon to come up with that scientific method for learning new things about the earth, not just taking the Greek and Romans word for it, but learning more ourselves. The printing press is going to distribute all these ideas that we talked about. It's going to go from Newton's to Galileo's to Copernicus. All those books are going to be spread around thanks to the printing press. And now people are becoming more educated and learning more about the world. And it's really going to cause the weakening of the Catholic Church. They're going to look like the bad guys here because they're trying to hide behind their principles and try to prove these people as wrong. So all of these things that we've talked about, the patronage system is going to pay for scientists. It's going to pay for exploration. All of these things lead to all the effects of the scientific revolution. So make sure you take a look at these, understand how we got from one place to the next, and hopefully you'll understand why the scientific revolution was so important. It definitely helps our lives today.